questions have been raised around whether former Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng is legally allowed to run for president come 2024, given his previous work. Mogoeng recently made headlines when it was reported that he's been put forward as a presidential candidate under the All-African Alliance movement. But according to the Judicial Service Commission Act, a retired judge must not enter politics. So let's make sense of this for you now. Bring in Mbekezeli Benjamin, who's a research and advocacy officer with Judges Matters. Mbekezeli, it's always great to have you on the program. Thanks for making time to chat to us. So as I mentioned there, the Judicial Service Commission Act is what may prevent the former Chief Justice from actually being the president, as it were. But what the Act says is that retired judges must not enter party politics. What exactly does that mean?
Good morning, and to the viewers. Well, the JSC Act has to be read with the Code of Conduct for judges. And the Code of Conduct at Article 17 is very explicit. It says retired judges may not enter party politics. That means that as a retired judge, you are not, you cannot represent a political party in a public office. You cannot even participate in the activities of a political party, including running for office or any other leadership role in that political party. So the purpose behind this is to protect judicial independence and the integrity of the judiciary. As you know, sitting judges, so judges that are still hearing cases in court, are also not allowed to be members of political parties. They may also not participate in the activities of political parties. So in all of this, in reading the code and in reading the act, the intention is very clear, which is to protect the independence of the judiciary.
Yeah, the intention is clear, but I wonder if the wording covers all our bases, especially because we may very well enter a space where individuals, independent candidates, may end up running for the presidency without having to be affiliated with any political party. Do you imagine that sort of entering or introducing an interesting dynamic?
Well, so the code itself, read with the JSC Act, also caters for that kind of eventuality. And it is very clear when it says that a judge may only hold judicial office. You cannot hold any other office of profit other than judicial office. So that means if you are a judge, you cannot be a minister in the government. You cannot even run a business on the side because that would be an office of profit that is expressly prohibited by the Act. So it does allow, the Code and the Act does allow a few exceptions though. So for example, judges may write books and they may receive royalties from those books. They may also have certain investments, but those investments must be declared on an annual basis. But also the judge must first request permission from the Minister of Justice before they may decide to hold any other office. So as I see it, I cannot imagine a situation where a judge will remain being a judge, because you'll recall a judge is appointed for life. So I can't see a situation where you'll remain a judge but also hold a political office or be involved in party politics in any way. It's completely irreconcilable.
Sure. I mean, is there room for the former Chief Justice, who we know now has retired, essentially resigning from this title of being a judge in order to make way for him to participate in this way in any kind of political activity? Because we do know that even as a retired judge, Mogoeng Mogoeng does enjoy a few benefits. If you were to forego those, do you reckon then he might be allowed to run for president?
Well, technically, yes. He is free to resign as a judge, but of course he will lose the status of a judge. He can no longer be called a judge anymore. He will also lose the benefits that come with it, because judges are appointed for life and they receive their salary for life. And so that he will also forego that. But we, as Judges Matter, still believe it would be a grave, grave mistake if he was to do that. Because for a very long time in our country, we've associated him with the office of the Chief Justice. We've associated him with the judiciary. So if he turns around and wants to run for political office, in our mind as the public, will still associate him with that, even though technically he's no longer a judge and he has retired. So for that reason, we think it would be a mistake for him to run for political office, and perhaps he should, however noble his intentions are, he should give maybe other people that opportunity.
What do you say in response to people who are, worried about, matters around freedom of expression, someone's autonomy, being able to direct your own trajectory even post being a judge? Because, we do know these are still individuals with constitutional rights.
So the office of a judge is a very serious responsibility in our country. It is a position of service. Someone who takes it up does so because they want to serve the country and they want to serve the public. And when you take that office, there are a number of restrictions that are on you as an individual, including your family sometimes. A judge cannot simply walk into any tavern on a Friday night and say, it's my freedom of association. That can't be. A judge cannot be seen in certain places. A judge cannot associate with certain people. Even if you and I grew up as best friends, but when the time comes, I will have to disassociate with myself with you, depending on the kind of business or kind of work or life that you live. Those are the restrictions that come with judicial office. So it is something that you take up knowing very well that you have to give up certain of your freedoms. You have to have limitations in some of your constitutional rights. So it can't be that 10 years later, when you've retired, you then decide, oh no, these are too restrictive on my constitutional rights, and I can do as I wish. It simply does not work that way.
Tough crowd. I wonder whether or not this is international best practice. And in other words, do we have instances in other countries where we've had judges who have ambitions to occupy the president's office actually going ahead and doing that? Whether or not they succeed is a different thing, but being allowed to participate in the process. I know there was a case in Brazil.
Yeah. So we've had examples in previous countries, but the most serious one, I think, is Brazil, where a judge who was responsible for a big corruption case in that country, and it was actually a corruption case that led to the resignation of President Lula da Silva and his successor, President Dilma Rousseff. So the judge who was in charge of that case, obviously because of the spotlight and the television cameras, he decided that he will also resign as a judge and go into political office. Now that has a huge impact on the Brazilian judiciary, because now people are looking back at his judgment and saying, wait, when you gave a judgment here, was it really because you were your interpretation of the law, or were you trying to sort of be more popular so that one day you may run for political office? So that has caused big headaches in that country. And I imagine in South Africa we don't want similar headaches, because it really would not be good for the judiciary of South Africa.
Yeah. We also know that we, at least in our country, still use retired judges or justices for several things, like commissions, for instance. And Dikgang Moseneke did one with Life Esidimeni, etc. What kind of responsibilities does the Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng still have to the country, even though he's not, officially still in court?
So, look, like I said earlier, all judges are appointed for life. So you continue to receive your salary even until retirement and even after. So that means that you owe a debt of service to the country, and you may be called up for certain responsibilities at any given time. Of course, depending on your availability and your capacity to carry out those functions. I don't think there are clear responsibilities necessarily for Judge Mogoeng, but he might possibly be called up for some or other service. Right now, there is a talk about him being called to chair a panel that will investigate whether there are grounds for the impeachment of the president. So those kinds of responsibilities are the kinds of responsibilities that we associate with the judge, we associate with judicial office. So if someone wants to run for political office, then those kinds of responsibilities and political office are in direct conflict with each other, and this is again why it is so dangerous for a judge, even a retired judge, to have any sort of political ambitions.
Out of interest, would he be obliged to take that up?
No, not necessarily.
Right.
It would be a voluntary basis, and he has the option to decline. But he would obviously be expected to give some or other reason.
Yeah, that's certainly the expectation. One can't help though but think about the personhood of Mogoeng Mogoeng. I mean, it's not the first time, he's raised eyebrows by comments he's made or perhaps ambitions he's had, etc. Are you as Judges Matters concerned about, the kind of image that's molding around this individual who, without any doubt, still wields a lot of influence in society?
Well, I think as a person who held a very serious responsibility in our country, someone who served as Chief Justice, it is to be expected that a lot of us would look to him for sort of guidance on morals and ethics, on proper behavior. So it's not surprising that a lot of people do respect him for the role that he has played in society. But of course, we wish to remind all judges, and not just him, that they do also have a loyalty to the judiciary, and there is an expectation that in any of their utterances, they will try to be to restrain themselves, try not to say things that will cause harm to the institution of the judiciary. That is what Judges Matter is particularly interested in, that the institution of the judiciary is respected and protected at all times, particularly by judges. So in that respect, we are concerned sometimes when he has made statements in the past, but of course he has tried to rein himself in, and if he failed to rein himself in, we've seen the Judicial Conduct Committee step in and enforce the rules against him.
Mbekezeli Benjamin, always great chatting to you, sir. Thanks for making time. Mbekezeli Benjamin is a research and advocacy officer with Judges Matters.